For anyone who is joining us for the first time, and for people who have been keeping up with us through the sessions, this was something we wanted to start doing once the unfortunate coronavirus started kind of taking its hold on the United States and everyone started bunkering down. We wanted to find a new avenue to engage with the community, teach a new trade for anyone who's just curious, or someone who wants to be a tour manager, or just wants to sit in and learn from some people with experience in the field. So we're able to get some great people together and start building on these webinars, and just to kind of keep things fluent and talk about tour management. We were fortunate to have 5-1 join us last week's session. He's back with us today. We've got Henry below, we've got Adrian, we've got Mary Jo, and then we are graced by Andrew Weiss today. Thank you for joining us, Andrew. We're going to be discussing budget today, why it's important to have a budget in place, how these tours function and how they wouldn't function without one. It would be a very rocky slope without a budget. We need to know what our numbers look like, and the ins and outs of that, and the importance around it, and why having a proper budget in place is going to help us run a really tight tour, and just being flexible in the landscape of how things change on tour, and how your budget will fluctuate. So yeah. So here we are. We are on webinar number 5, talking about budgeting tours. So
exciting.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy, so this is fun.
I can't wait.
We have a lot of great templates, and we had a really good discussion yesterday about it. And I know the 5-1 had a really great template that he was sharing, and I know it was going to kind of kick things off and start rolling with it. So can I pass the torch to you, David?
Well, we're actually going to pass the torch to Andrew.
All right, we're going to go to Andrew first. Okay.
Yep, he's our main guy today.
Well, thanks everybody for having me yesterday. It's really fun to kind of get our heads back into this, especially with this extended break that we're having right now. And so, in our conversation yesterday, I kind of took a little bit of time and thought about the basic budget process and where at least I start. And I guess it's a simple template. If you're getting into this, I broke it down into 4 little groups, at least for my process, and I can share that with you. The first thing, I think the first step for all of us is just a really basic question, which is, what is the tour goal? What are we going to do? And I think when you talk about the tour goal, some of that may be clear, and then sometimes it's a little bit different. I come up with 3 different primary motivators for tour that I think we've probably all been asked for at some point. The first tour goal that I think most of us deal with is straight up profit. We're doing this for a living, as is our artist. So if profit's the main tour goal, how much of a profit's going to be made? How we're going to do that, if we're going to figure a percentage of the tour revenue, or if the artist just has us flat out, I need to make $100,000 or $500,000 or $4 million, or I'm not doing it. And I think that for the most part, that's usually the primary tour goal when we start off with our budget, is profit. Sometimes you can get asked to do a little bit of a different step from that. If your artist may have an established artist that wants to have a creative message, which could take the place of profit as your primary tour driver. If your artist is going to go say, I'm going to reinvent myself, or we're going to step into a different lane, and we're going to try something. I'm going to, present something new to my fans, where profit may not be your primary driver. And then I think the third that we all have dealt with, and if you're new to tour management, you're very likely to come across, which is artist promotion. If you've got an up-and-coming artist, or somebody that's new with a record deal, that's getting some good radio or streaming activity, and it's time to try to put them out there. And I think those are the 3 primary tour goals that I can think of when it comes to building a tour that may be your motivators. If we're going to go out there for profit, or we're going to go out here and try to create something artistic that may be a step away from pure profit, and then if we're going to try to promote an upcoming artist. So if you get those, if you have that kind of clear message to begin with, I think then you move on to, where do you start actually building a budget? And you usually start hopefully with a little bit of information, an itinerary that could be real or hypothetical. In terms of a real itinerary, hopefully you would get something from your agent or manager where you're saying, okay, welcome aboard, you're part of this team. We've got 50 dates over the summer for 3 months, or we've got this theater tour that we're going to do, and here's a list of dates, and what's this going to cost us? Hopefully, in addition to that, if your artist or business management are willing to share, you've got a revenue estimate right out of the gate to say, here's our goal. Or if you don't, sometimes you can get asked to kind of shoot from in the dark. If I want to say a hypothetical, I'm going to go out, I'd like to see what it cost us to do a House of Blues for 8 weeks, 4 shows a week, and just let us know what it would cost. You can kind of get those questions. So from there, if you're still starting, you're going to try to get, ideally go to your artist, and then you're going to run down the basic knowledge of your artists and their minimum requirements for tours, such as crew, travel requirements, their backline and production. So those are kind of like I see on step 2, where do you start? Probably the first 3 questions. Do you have an itinerary, real or hypothetical? Do you have any idea what your revenue estimate's going to be from your agent or your manager? And then, is it time, do you have the basic knowledge of the artist, or is it time to go out and collect some of that basic information? You guys are really quiet.
I think we're just really enjoying listening and learning from you. And you're right.
Comprehensive.
It's really spot on. Though. Like, it's exactly like what you're thinking. And then, sometimes, as you're saying, like the 3 sort of goals that they may have, sometimes management just wants all 3 of those goals at the same time. And it's like unrealistic to start. And so it's a challenge. But you're right. I love to do that first and just total up all of the guarantees and see sort of where that number is. But you're right. The first thing is, like we were talking about yesterday, we all agreed that the first thing is like figuring out how many people are going to be on the tour. That really dictates quite a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you start putting it together, especially if you're new to the
is important.
Right.
Yeah, because if you know how many people, what can you decipher from there? How many hotel rooms? How much
Absolutely.
salary? That's a big chunk of the budget already, and those are some of your biggest line items, actually. So start there.
Right. So when you start having your conversations, if you're new to an artist, you're going to have that kind of introductory conversation where you start asking the questions like, wait, do you travel first class? Do you travel economy? Yeah. Does your crew travel in first class? Do you plan rental backline, or are we going to carry 1,500 kilos of backline everywhere we go? Do we carry sound and lights, or do we get local sound and lights? And ideally, you start to collect all that information together when you get ready to build your spreadsheet and you start to build your budget. So once you're collecting the information, you've got these basic tools and an idea of what your artist wants to do. I think this would be maybe a good time to share that basic spreadsheet that we were looking at yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can do this. This time too.
Feel free to ask those questions too. Every question you could think of about like what class people travel in, the little things really go a long way, because it's good to be thorough.
Okay. So what I've got here is just a hypothetical. Is that too small to read?
Yeah, zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, see if you can go up on the zoom on it. You can make it a little bigger. There we go.
Okay, this is a completely fake itinerary for a completely fake artist. And it shows that this is just a very working basic estimator that I use. And what I like to do, I've got a spreadsheet here with two tabs, one for the itinerary and one for a summary here. Ideally, you get your information from your booking agent or manager. You can drop this in here with your guarantees to give you a summary. This is a hypothetical where you'd be enlightened as to what the artist might make or is anticipated to make. And then from there, sorry.
Oh, well, just wanted to point out, if you go back, this is a good example, because a lot of times you'll see a budget like this and you'll see the guarantees, and then you're like, oh, look at those 2 shows. I'm making $350,000 on that one show, and then 200, and then on that one, but it's 75 across the board. Like, that's very common that artists will do the big ticket paying shows like casinos or a state fair or something right off the bat because they know they're going to make a ton of money in the beginning. And I've heard that called a tour anchor, you know, and that basically is the money it's the upfront cost of building the tour to get it out the door to do the rest of those dates.
A tour anchor, a money grab.
We love the anchor dates. Those are the ones
that rely on those private events, like in between, they'll fly off the tour, and that money will like Henry was saying, will float the tour itself.
Sometimes it bees that way.
Yeah.
And it's to revert back to what the tour goal is. If there's an artistic or creative message, it's not uncommon for, you know, to hear a conversation with a manager and agent to say, you know what, we're going to go out and do this, but I'll get you 3 festival dates and that'll bump up the guarantees. So now you can carry that, you know, unicorn or fake moon that you want to fly every night or whatever it is. It's going to cost us a fortune and not be profitable on these other dates. So here, Henry, you've got the ability to share this for people that are interested in it, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is a very simple open Excel spreadsheet that gives anybody trying to start off a working idea. I mean, there's no really complicated formulas are in here, but you know, to start off and try to build, you know, a budget. Once you've got a little bit of basic info, you can start dropping in your crew names and your salaries, your number of dates on the tour, and your kind of known costs for this: per diems, transportation, buses, trucks, airfares, lodging. We got a few production categories here, very basic, and miscellaneous.
Yeah, this is a good basic template. This is a really good basic template for.
Yeah, this is great.
Tours. I realize that so many people have probably never seen what a tour budget looks like. You know, usually it's only shared amongst the top brass.
At the bottom of this, I would want to point out for anybody, if you're starting off, when you have commissions at row 92 and below, this has the ability here to factor in commissions. Sometimes you're going to be asked to look at this, and sometimes you're not. If you're on the upstart, probably more often than not, you're not going to be asked to do this. And for anybody, if you're starting off or you're new to touring, figuring artist profit or record label commissions or anybody's commissions, it may be something that's a little bit protected, and it may not. But if you're new to this, you don't need to know this if you don't. You shouldn't feel offended if you're not asked to participate in that.
Right.
It's neither here nor there for what we do. And it's just something that, you know, may or may not be there. You may or may not be asked. I think it's more often when you have got a longer relationship with an artist or a few years go deep, and there's, you know, a level of familiarity, you might see more than that. But if you're not asked, don't feel bothered by it. It's not ultimately relevant as long as you're going through the right process and getting your budgets approved by the people you work with. So.
Right.
It's often known as proprietary information. 5.1 is going to get into a little bit of contingency and percentages and things like that once Andrew's done sharing this amazing spreadsheet with us.
Okay,
this is a good one.
I'm going to stop sharing this for a second here so we can talk a little bit more. As I said, for the basic budget process, we've talked about the tour goal, number 2, where do you start? And now we're talking about budgeting tools. I got to say, a big tool is your spreadsheet. And if this helps anybody, I'm really happy that it could. I think that the other tools that you really got to, I tried to write out a list of the other tools that I think are critical at this point. And, you know, the tools that I see are the booking agent, the business manager, your travel agent, your vendors, all people, and all, hopefully, you know, you're building a good team. And if you're new to any of this or all of this, these people ideally should be fantastic resources to look at an itinerary the first time and try to figure, if it's your first time running across the country, to reach out to your agent and say things like, you know, you got Denver, but then it's 2 days before LA, or why is Salt Lake City? You got a day off everywhere you go. If you don't have that depth, your agent can tell you, well, you know, Salt Lake City is just not close to anything. And when you get on the West Coast, you need travel days. Or I'm a little bit worried about being in Canada in January, so we've got more travel days. And you should really be able to rely on these people and ask a lot of questions. Hey, why'd you do this? Why didn't you do this? I'm concerned, at some point, if you're talking about a van and trailer tour or a one bus and trailer tour, you're probably going to get an itinerary and be told to figure it out. But as this scales up into 2 or 3 buses and 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 trucks, you'll probably be asked to participate more and more on the planning stage to make sure you can move a tour at that size and scale effectively across the markets that they're looking at.
Yeah, it's great when that can happen. It's kind of rare, isn't it? Because even on the larger tours, sometimes we just come in after the tour is announced, and even on an arena tour, we're told to just figure it out, right?
Yeah, and some of these people, if you're new to traveling as a tour manager and planning travel for a group, and you're a big fan of websites or for travel, I think you'll probably learn quickly that a travel agent is going to be your best resource, regardless of what you feel like you may be wasting in terms of agent commissions to travel, because your travel agent becomes a right-hand man once you get out there on the road, and you're a right-hand person, and becomes a really vital asset, and that you can call and ask, well, I'm thinking about should I do a round the world ticket, or should I just go straight to Australia and then Europe, or should I buy this ticket in brackets? What should I do? It's not happening for 5 months, and I need to create an estimate. It can give you a lot of ideas on how to plan this. And I think that anybody that you're willing to work with and do business with, vendor-wise or otherwise, should be able to get on the phone with you and answer lots of questions while you're doing estimates.
Very true. That's a really good point in all of this, because it applies to the budget as well. But that relationship a tour manager has with the travel agent is huge. How long did you say you worked with your travel agent yesterday, Andrew? Like 20 years?
23 years I've been with the same travel agent.
Yeah. See,
she finishes my sentences on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I'd like to point out that even on a 101, especially I think on a beginning level, a lot of people think, oh, I can't afford a travel agent, or they won't work with me because they only work with big tours. And that's not true. Actually, like they're very welcoming of people that are starting. Because they know that you may end up going bigger, and then they have a new client. Also, because when you develop a good relationship, you do tend to keep that relationship, and it can be long-term and solid. So even if you only have like a bus driver room and some day rooms, it's really worth it. They don't charge you anything for hotels. I see a lot of people wondering if they'll pay fees for a hotel. They don't. The hotel is paying the travel agent a commission. And yes, you may pay a fee for the nowadays. Airlines don't do a commission. However, they can get into that system and make for you, stuff like that. So overall in the budgeting, it may look a little more by just a touch to use a travel agent, but in the big picture, you'll find I save money. I think all of us would agree. So don't ever be afraid and also references, reach out to somebody who's maybe been doing it longer and ask for an introduction to their travel agent. It's a good way to find one.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate enough to be an opening act on a larger, like an arena tour, and it's your first time, you can always reach out to if you've got a good relationship with your headliner TM and ask if that agent can handle some of your booking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And help. And ideally, you don't ask if you can just piggyback their rates. I mean, do the right thing and ask the agent to do the work and get the commission that they earn as an agent. But it's a good way to kind of toe in the door and actually start building a relationship with somebody that's got a substantial amount.
Good time to plug. April 13th, we're doing a talk about travel.
That's what I was going to say.
Travel agents, flights, and hotels. So April 13th, we'll talk about that. It's a lot to talk about in travel.
I'll stop talking about it now.
Yeah. But
it's budgets for sure, though. They're your best friend on a chunk of that.
They are.
Hey guys, the other thing that we had spoke about yesterday, Andrew and Mary Jo brought up that when we're having these budgets, they should not say that these are numbers that are like concrete. We should label them as estimated or projected budgets. So further on down the road, as the tour's going on, if your flights are a little bit more expensive because now you're booking them closer to the actual dates of you traveling and stuff, that these numbers are not concrete numbers. These are estimated and projected numbers for a budget.
Right. Right.
That's true. And that kind of ties in well to what I said, number 4, the 4 parts of my basic budget process, which is presentation. When you've got some estimates together and you bring it to your manager, business manager, really manager, business manager, artist, and artist is with a humongous asterisk of when appropriate. When you present your ideas on how to move your tour to your manager or business manager, it's important to remember that this is a work in progress. And in a healthy business relationship, you're going to get asked a lot of questions about why you're doing it and what your plan is. And that's a healthy dialogue to have. But to realize, you might get questioned about what your plan is and how you're doing it. So you get a little pushback and questions. And that's good. It's a good idea where they get to know it's in your head and you get to know it's their head. Sometimes the manager will say, yeah, you're talking about nights, these hotel rooms every night. The artist isn't going to go in them. Maybe the artist said they wanted to go in, but they're not going to. They're going to sleep till 3 p.m. on their bus, and you're just going to waste the hotel. So you start to pick it apart, and that's a healthy part of your budgeting process to make sure you present with an open mind to the people that you're working with. And
can I bring up something real quick, Andrew, if you don't
Sure.
mind, to kind of piggyback on that? Also, I think it's a good idea as you're putting together your budget to have a conversation with your artist beforehand to also see how they would like to travel. Do they want to go straight into a hotel, or are they okay if they want to save money to, check in a little bit later, like you just said? But I've always found that if you sit down and kind of you have an idea of how you would route the tour, to speak with the actual artist to get their feedback, because they might not want to stay on the bus. They might want to fly, or they might want to get their own rental car and just drive themselves. So I find it's always good to have a conversation with the actual artists themselves to find out how they would like to move from city to city.
Yeah. It's true. Every artist that I've done, every artist I work with, I sit down and have that conversation. They really appreciate it. They find it's nice to actually be so thorough into their day, because that's what you do as a tour manager, and planning their day and how they move. And you got to learn your artist moves. Your artist may wake up early, or they may not want to move anywhere till afternoon. So you got to know these things.
Yeah,
and sometimes it requires a little bit of intuition.
right.
Yeah.
Story. And sometimes, definitely if it's your first run with the artist, you want to have a good look at your routing and see if there are anything that might be interesting or might want to make you divert or not have a day off in a city, as opposed to maybe staying behind in a city and not having your artist moving forward. And again, that does go to intuition. For example, if you've got a show in Chicago and the next show's in Grand Rapids, sometimes your artist might want to stay in Chicago and have that day off in Chicago, but your crew might move forward to Grand Rapids on that day. So that's a different situation. In my history, one of the things that I've done is give a little bit of that intuition and thought for the artist that put it together for them, and say, at a certain point, you want to take it to them or to their direct assist or however it works, and you say, this is what I'm thinking. We're going to do our usual move forward each night, but how about in these cities, because of so-and-so and such, would you like to hold back and spend the day off or move forward? You let me know, have a look, let me know if there's any anomalies that you see. And you guys, meaning if you're speaking with your artist assist or you're speaking directly with the artist, you say, here's what we're looking at. Let's go through it real quick, super simple, business as usual, except for here, and here. Oh, and we have a fly date here. How do you want to do it? And that way you have an idea. Somebody says, I might want to fly that. Yeah, no, I want to go on the ground. Actually, I'd like to take a van. These are things that come up. So and this just goes back to Master Tour for me, the act of entering my data into Master Tour helps me to become familiar with my tour. Like I mentioned when we were talking about Master Tour last week, it helps me to start to see the hot spots and logistical concerns. And we're going to do logistics panel on Thursday, so that ties into that. Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you. The last thing I have in my 4 notes on basic budget process or presentation after speaking, to your manager and understanding this is a work in progress is make sure you've got a direct line with your business manager who's going to see all of your receipts and make sure that you perceive budget and expense categories in the same way. And if you're starting off, that might just be talking to your business manager saying, does this make sense? Do you know what I mean here? And making sure they say, yeah, I got what you're doing, or no, I don't understand, what this abbreviation is. And well, I don't know if I should plan on my artist getting room service every day or not. And, the business manager can say, that's going to be taken out of their revenue, so ignore it and just pay it. Or yes, that needs to be part of your hotel budget. They're going to have 4 meals every day in their room. So just to make sure that you're looking at it the same way. And really, really bothering your business manager to make sure as you don't want to get 3 months into a working itinerary and have them going, what is this category, or why is this company calling me? And you scrambling to realize, he's taking your freight estimate and he's applying that to checked baggage and he thinks you're under budget. Now you've got a $25,000 freight bill that he's going to yell at you about because he didn't understand. And that's really what I have for the 4 parts of my basic budget process.
Oh, that's good. Thanks, Andrew. 5-1, you're going to talk a little bit about contingency and management percentages, which we saw at the bottom of that template. Can you break that down actually for a minute, and for our new students, tell us what.
Can you bring that back up for a second, Andrew?
Absolutely. Give me 1 second.
Thanks. Yeah, let's just define real quick, easily, what contingency and percentages are.
Well, how I break down contingencies is, a contingency is basically a buffer. You kind of put a line item in there just in case, for the things that you don't expect, or things that pop up, like Andrew said, like, freight, or if you have another show that pops up, you now have additional flights, ground transportation, salaries, per diems. So in the long run, a contingency is basically you're taking all of your expenses and you're adding like 13, let me see if I can see. Can you scroll all the way down? Okay, thank you. So where Andrew has on his sheet where all the commissions and things are, and then below that in next to 102 net profit, and then 105 artist net profit. A lot of times what I will do is on top of the commissions, I would probably put it below commissions, a whole nother field. And you would take all of your expenses, and then different business managers, some managers like to have a contingency in there, some don't. I always like to put my contingency number at 13%. So I would take all of the expenses and then times it by 13%, and you would have like a little buffer. The business managers that don't like to have contingency plans, a number in the budget, what I would do is start slowly padding small things like flights. So if a flight is $367, I will pad it in the budget to like $425 on, each one. I would round them up to like another $50 or $100. So at the end of the tour, if your flight budget is over, then you can plug in the actual numbers, and then you've got yourself covered. For business managers who like to have a contingency number, it could be anywhere from 3% to 13%. That number is basically a dead number. It's just a buffer for you to have. At the end of the day, that number is either going to go up or it's going to go down by the changes in the how your tour is running. The other thing that we had spoken about yesterday was adding a number for payroll and payroll fees. And do you have that one on yours, Andrew?
Right there. Row 31.
Payroll taxes, yeah. So Andrew has 20%. We spoke yesterday that some people have that number lower, some people have it higher. I learned something valuable yesterday by our internal conversation that my number was way, way low. So I really want to appreciate, thank you guys for kind of hipping me on that, because I love this Tour Management 101 because I'm learning stuff. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that. But I would definitely make sure you have a number in there for payroll taxes and other miscellaneous things that will, because a lot of times you won't see those in budgets, and that's something that's, you can easily oversee. Mary Jo, I think you had something that you were saying about it yesterday.
That it's a idea to ask the business manager. My rule of thumb, I use 23, but a lot of mine are 23%, but a lot of the stuff I'm budgeting is going out of California, where there are very strict labor laws. Same with New York. So they tend to be a little higher, but I did find out through talking to a manager at CAPS that it kind of varies by state. So it's a good thing to talk to the manager. My rule of thumb is 20%, because I figure it's going to be close. If it's actually a little higher, it's and if anything, I'm just padding a little bit. And the payroll fees. So what those are, and I think this is very relevant right now because a lot of people are applying for unemployment. If you're being paid out of payroll, more often than not, you're being paid by Team Tours or CAP or some payroll company. Those are considered employers of record. So that technically, for tax purposes, is your employer. So your band, your client may be incorporated, but they don't have a payroll company. So they hire these payroll companies who are holding, so the fees are covering taxes, the fees just to do their job, but it's also unemployment insurance, workers' comp. So that's what that is, that 20 or 23% or 13%, depending on the state, is covering, is for your client to hire a payroll company to be your employer of record. And that, because they have to pay that, it's out of pocket. So any of you that are claiming unemployment right now, I'm simplifying this a lot, but any of you that are claiming unemployment right now, that's part of what that fee is. They're paying unemployment insurance. So don't feel bad about claiming it. So.
Yesterday, someone said that Tennessee's like 14%, and then California is like 23.
I mentioned that in some of the estimating work with some Tennessee-based business managers, I was asked to lower that payroll tax number to 14 and 13%. Now, that is me not doing the research on my own. That's the business manager asking me where to put the number.
So the business manager is usually the people that are hiring the employers of record, the payroll companies. So just ask them, So it's not a big secret. It's better to be on. But until I know for sure, I just usually plug in 20 just to be safe.
Yeah.
But that's California, So.
Henry, you want to talk about quotes?
Yeah. Okay. Quotes, vendors. When it comes to getting quotes, I guess, okay. At the beginning level, for many years when I started touring, I never reached out to a vendor because we just weren't that kind of band. Like we didn't have the money to spend to go hire a lighting company or spend any money extra. Any money that we had went to gas to get us to the next show, or to guitar strings or picks, whatever the consumables we needed for the show. So if you're at that level and you're starting, sure, you may not need to reach out to vendors, but you can still, and when it comes to a budget as a tour manager, you can still price out those things. Like, what you're going to need, figure out what per show you use for batteries, sticks, strings, picks, and that all gets broken down into a figure. But then you can go and figure out how much all of that costs per show from Guitar Center versus Tour Supply or Sam Ash. Go do your due diligence and go to 3 different places and find out what the lowest number is. And then, if you're an up and coming band, you may not be able to buy a whole tour's worth of supplies. So buy a week or two's worth at the beginning, and how how much it'll cost you per week. And then later on down the road, then you can look ahead and see, I'm going to be in Houston in 2 weeks. Look it up. There's a Guitar Center there. I can go on that day off and buy the next 2 weeks tour. And so you've allocated the money across the board for the supplies that you need. As you get bigger, and you may need to start reaching out to vendors, there's some things that you may know exactly what you need. Like if it's laminates, passes, stuff like that, you can figure out what you need per show you take a good estimate of how many sticky passes, laminates, or wristbands you need, and then reach out to a couple different vendors. They, there's so many vendors out there that are listed on BobNet and also in just any of the forums. So find out who's using what vendors for what. Reach out to them. Have a good talking relationship with your vendors, because they ultimately want to help you. But get the quotes, figure out which one is the best price for your budget, and then you can go from there. But say it's something that you maybe don't know exactly what you need. Like if you're a tour manager and it's your first time going to get a lighting quote, go talk to your LD. They'll be able to tell you exactly what instruments they need and what the design needs to be. And then it's the same formula. You can then talk with your vendors. And I find it's especially coming up, be very honest and open with them about how much money about how much you have in the budget, and also what you're traveling in. You need to be realistic with getting quotes, because are you a bus and trailer tour? Are you a semi? That how you're going to move the equipment around is a big dictator in how much you may be able to spend. And then I wanted to mention that say you got your lighting quotes, and that one of them is a guy that, a friend of a friend that just bought a whole bunch of lighting gear and he's got it in his garage. He'll give you a killer deal for it, and that's going to be the lowest number out of the 3 quotes you get. You may find that when that lighting equipment breaks on tour, you now have no support and you're just stuck pushing around broken gear every day until you can get it back home or somebody can ship out parts. So going with the lowest price is not always the best thing to do. You go with a regional or national vendors. They have the support and the crew that are well versed and well staffed and trained to be able to help you while you're out there, because you're going to need to depend on them, because things will break and things will go wrong and need to be replaced. So do your due diligence, get at least 3 quotes, realize that you need the support when you're dealing with larger equipment, and have a good relationship with your vendors. Honestly, like they've come to be really good friends of mine over the years. We and a lot of them have started in touring, so they know exactly what it's like out there for you. Any thoughts? Anybody want to add to that?
We have
I think we can
Q&A
keep
question.
moving. Mary Jo?
So especially when you are starting out, you may get, and it actually even still happens to all of us, been doing it for a while, management may send you a budget. And a lot of times when you get it, you're like, what was this based on? You might not know. So my suggestion is to have a look at it. 5-1 had a great suggestion yesterday. He said sometimes he starts looking through them formulas. Sometimes it's an old budget format. Do a little bit of forensics in there and try to see how they got to the numbers, if all the calculations are right. Because usually in all of our experience that we discussed, it's like you kind of look at it scratching your head sometimes, like, where did they get these numbers? So that's what I would usually do. And I think you agree, is first look at it, try to figure out maybe how they got there, work your way through the formulas, so that then you can go back to them and say, hey, your formulas are right. It could just be that like the numbers don't add up and that's what doesn't look right to you. Or you may be like, hey, have a discussion with management, business management, say, hey, can I cost some of these things out? Like, I'd like to cost these out. Let me write a budget. Let's compare. It's really smart to do your own research and see where those numbers are coming from and come to an agreement, because this is your roadmap when you're on tour. And, if you go over that budget, if those numbers aren't realistic or close to realistic, it's going to be challenging to defend why they're over. So I think the biggest thing is,
their budget's based on an old rider too. For some reason.
That's true.
Yeah, a lot of times it's based on the tour just prior or from last year, and maybe the act was huge last year and they're not so big this year, or vice versa. They're up and coming. That's it. Hopefully, you're in a position where I see that a common mistake. They budget it for like last year, and since then the records come out, they've blown up, and you're going to take out twice as much production this time, or a few more people, and so their figures are off, and so you have to do your due diligence and to make sure it's right.
Yeah, and I think don't be, you're all working together with management, business management, to keep this tour on track. So don't be up and, hey, can I work on, I'd like to work on this a little bit, and getting there, because it's to everybody's benefit that they're it, or as they can be.
There's a good question here I kind of want to put out to us. Moose Hamid asks, at this time, do you also budget local labor, and how would you go about it, considering rates vary in every place? Who wants to answer this one?
I will take a no, you don't, because if you go back and you go back to one of our other sessions where we're talking about deal memos, that is the show budget.
Right.
So the local promoter is handling that, and that is what eventually you will be settling on. That's a show expense. That's a different budget. That's the show. So this is just the overall tour, what it's going to cost you and what's going to come out of the artist's pocket, the income versus expenses just to run the tour.
Right.
So local labor falls under show budget, and we'll be talking about that later. We're going to do a panel that's just running through what a day of show would look like,
Right.
and then a separate one just on settlement, and that would be settling with the promoter. So that's their cost as part of the show. So you don't really have to worry about that until you settle the show and advance the show for what you need. So anybody else?
Moose does make a good point there that, local labor rates vary wildly market to market, and Moose is right. They do. And that's really a function of your local rep and your promoter to actually come up with your local show expenses. A settlement question would be when you audit those on your day of show, but no, that doesn't factor in.
You know what? There is a scenario that I have been in where I did have to anticipate that I was going to need a separate call of hands that were dedicated just to myself, which was the support act on the tour. So we weren't headlining. I had additional gear that I needed to hire a separate set of hands to deal with this production. And so that was coming out of our cost. And so knowing that going into the tour, I factored that in from the beginning. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Or if you're a support has out of pocket, or if you're doing festivals and you're going to pay for your own runner. So that actually would be local labor that you would budget. Yeah,
Right.
Good point.
I think if it's something you're factoring in on your side, it's something to note. If it's something that's coming out of the artist's pocket, then that falls into our budget going into the tour. Like they were all saying, if it's something being handled on the promoter side, that's something it's going to get a little rocky if you start just putting in all these numbers that you don't technically have to account for on your side in your budget. So it can be left out.
Right. And there's also, you might have to defend your budget a little bit as you move along. Sometimes you're going to defend your budget to your artist, and sometimes you're going to defend your budget to your business manager. For example, we encourage, and it's widely encouraged these days to get 3 different quotes from vendors. Now, we generally will have relationships at a certain level, trusted vendors that have worked with the act, or maybe that you've worked with. And sometimes your act has a vendor relationship, and sometimes you have vendor relationships, sometimes you have many. So you want to get a few quotes. There may be times where you feel like you've got to go with a little bit of a higher quote, because perhaps your necessities are loaded with automation. Let's just talk a little few more bells and whistles. And Andrew was really candid and funny yesterday, and he said sometimes the objective, this lends itself to knowing what your artist's objective is. Sometimes the objective is to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, and sometimes the objective is to have a floating spangly unicorn on the stage. So sometimes you better make sure, if you have that unicorn, that the unicorn works. If you got confetti cannons, they better blow. Do you know what I'm saying? So in times when you have a gag, or you've got something that might be a little more than just a straightforward light and PA hang, you may want to go with a vendor who is particularly, maybe a little bit more expensive, because if it breaks, if the confetti cannon blows, if the widgets don't move, if the winches don't go, if the motors fail, if an LED panel goes out, if whatever it is happens, you need to have that fixed immediately. You have to have confidence knowing that your vendors have a reach in a market that can solve things on show day, not tomorrow, not the next day. Sometimes mom and pop, you may want to give them a whirl. They may be bending over and sharpening their pencil into negatives for you. Sometimes it doesn't pay to do that. Conversely, sometimes your artist wants to take a G4 from Cleveland to Chicago, and that's just not prudent. And you're going to say, it doesn't make any sense to do it this way. At a certain point, you may have to throw your hands up and go, I will roll this puppy however you would like. I just need you to know that this math, this minus this means this. And at the end of the day, you're sucking up a lot of your money. Are you good with that? In thinking about this after we did our prep meeting yesterday, I came up with a question for the panel myself, actually, and I'm really interested in hearing this one. And there was a question from someone here online a minute ago that I saw. So let's say that things are going wrong, and this is going to lend itself to our next topic that Andrew was going to address about what happens if you're going in the red. But for my fellow panelists, here's a question. You're out there, you're putting budgeting together. Somebody in a position of power, whether it's the artist, the business manager, or management, is approving a budget that you don't think is realistic, that you feel is broken, and at the end of the day, you feel like it's not correctly reflecting the end of the day profit results that your artist is going to see. And you bring it up and it's falling on deaf ears, because this happens. There are times when you do the best that you can to put a budget together and it's not working, and you're going, guys, just FYI, I know we want a 24-foot mountain, but that's going to be really costly, and we're about to spend X amount of dollars over in pre-production. And everybody's still greenlighting it. Where do you go with that? Henry, you're smiling, so I would really love this, because this is
I want to go second.
This is the complicated.
Yeah.
Listen, if tour management was only just being an administrator, then we could all learn how to do spreadsheets and do travel and things like that. There are some really sticky widgets that happen out here in tour management, and it's like, what's happening when you're heading for a wall and there's nothing you can do about it.
So what do you do? You know, obviously you've exhausted, assuming you've exhausted all of your communication resources of talking with everybody up the food chain, business management. You got to be careful about if you're going to say, go talk to the artist. A lot of the times we don't talk numbers with the artist. Unless you have that relationship, I don't suggest you do it. But okay, so say you've done that and it's still falling on deaf ears and it's still all greenlit and you're just in the red and everybody knows it or doesn't care. You know, I've been in those situations, and it can be really tricky because the artist is saying, do it, you know, just do it. And what I say goes, and management is just like, okay, whatever. At that point, you know, you've really kind of done the best you could. And a lot of the times I still see that ship sail. Like it doesn't stop, and they just spend the money and go into the red. A lot of the times it's like, man, sometimes we've started off with the best of intentions of making money on this tour, but once we get out there, they forget all about that. Right? And they just want to blow it all.
I would say, you know, I've definitely worked for a couple of artists where you've got that, you're sitting on the bus and they say, you know, wouldn't it be really cool if we came on stage in a red Ferrari, or, you know, and you're hearing something that, you know, in 10 days you're going to be working on, even though you haven't budgeted for it. And you know that you're going to go down that path, I think at that point, to email your business manager, your manager, everybody that has a say in what's going into the budget, and say, I think this is coming. It's definitely coming. Hey, I haven't heard from you. This is still coming. I'm at the precipice. We're about to write a check, or it's going to go on my card. Okay, it went on my card, and you don't want to think about this as you're now trying to protect yourself, but you kind of are, to say, hey, it's coming, it's happening, it is happening now. We got a point of no return. I need to get you on the phone, and now it's done. And because God knows there's a lot of us who are there, a lot of our peers in this business who have been someplace where a tour is just, it's a stiff, and they're going, the artist said, get this. And I said, well, we didn't realize it was happening. And now the artist is mad, and the business manager stays there, and the manager stays there, and you're checking want ads or going to McDonald's and seeing if somebody wants fries with that. That happens. And so the best you can do, and is, I think, document every step.
And I think for me, like, something that I've done in a situation like that is, I'm a big one for comparison budgets, because sometimes people are just, it's arbitrary, like, I want to do this. Even sometimes when it gets to the business manager or management, you would assume they'd be plugging in this extra expense, but they've got a lot going on. So I'm one for writing comparison budgets, even if it's just a little micro budget of that section. Say they want to switch from mid-level hotels to the Four Seasons in every city. And sometimes when they see that bottom line, what happens if you're going to drop that in there versus not doing it, for me, that has changed the conversation often. Yeah. So I know it doesn't always, but sometimes that can help for them to see, like, oh, we can put, $30,000 in our pocket versus going $100,000 into the red. And sometimes that has helped shift gears for me.
I agree with you, Mary Jo. I think another thing that all of us, not to make ourselves look like heroes, but that's a very good point, but to also go to the agent and show them the comparison budgets to management and the business managers, and then go into the agent and say, hey, can you book an extra show or a casino date or another date that will offset this? Good point. We can kind of meld the two things together. So we're making the artist happy just by adding another show, even if it's a casino date or a festival date, to kind of bring everything together to try to make it work.
Yeah, I like what Mary Jo was saying there. Transparency will take you the furthest, I think. As long as everyone knows exactly where we are going into this and we're all on the same page, then that's kind of where we stand. It is a tough situation. On our side, we always want to, do right by our client and be in the green and do all this due diligence and see us be in the green. But there is certain type of tours where we just want to make an impact in these markets, and we know we're going to spend that kind of money. Like, we know that we want to go above and beyond, and we want to put on a big show. And I've seen that happen on several tours I've been on, where we just want to have above and beyond production, and we want to put on a really big show. And we just, no matter how big our guarantees are, we can't match to float that kind of production. And it is what it is. And I think what Mary Jo is saying, as long as you're doing your due diligence and you're transparent and everyone's on the same page, and you're showing these comparisons and showing the options and being like, this is how we can do this properly and stay in the green, hopefully put money in our artist's pocket at the end of the tour. Or if they're saying, hey, we know what the numbers are now, and we want to continue on this route, then it's kind of out of our hands. We're here to run the ship, and we present all the information to them going into this thing. And if it's an agreement that the artist and management want to keep going forward in red, then it is what it is, I think.
And the artist might be playing something like the long game. Hey, we want to have a big show to kind of set up something further on down the road also. So we'll take a little bit less now to make more profit on the bigger tour that's coming up. So there's always two sides of it, but I really, really like this question, Adrienne. That was a really good one.
Really good. And I've done a tour with somebody that it was exactly what 5-1 was saying, where they considered what you call lost leader. They knew that they were going to be taking a huge hit because they were typically a headline act that was supporting somebody, but they wanted to hit, the whole goal was to hit a new audience for a new album that was coming out. And so that was completely a loss leader. Went in the hole, but that was, it was the long game, you know? So that means, but I think something I was thinking of here is that, you know, the difference, we're all talking on a level of if even if you're doing large clubs or theaters and you can sort of have that budget. Now, what happens if you, you know, if you're doing a band tour and the band is covering the whole thing, you know, and you're looking like you're going to go into the red? I think it's still applicable because then it's like, okay, do you book some extra shows? Do you talk to the band about, you know, is it a band that wants to bring a horn player with them that's their buddy? Maybe that can't happen, you know. It's
really need to have that come to Jesus moment with management and the artists of like, okay, what, you know, you're going to be in the red, this isn't the way we want to go, let's you know, send gear home. You know, cut back in the production costs, start sharing hotel rooms, you know, like it's really creative because every decision we make as a tour manager costs money. Every single decision costs money in some way. And so you have to be able to make those hard decisions for your band to get to that goal for them. Because what if you get to the end of the tour and you know, it happens all the time, you know, hey, we had a great tour, but we didn't really see the returns out of this tour that we wanted. So maybe the next time they need a TM, they're like, oh, we're going to go with somebody else that can get the job done and make us some money.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a question on the Q&A from anonymous attendee, and this is a great question. Do production managers not get the quotes for vendors for backline, strings, production related fields, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah, now we go back to, depends on what level of touring we're doing. We are doing TM 101 right now. So we're, you know, sort of dealing with a situation where the TM, a hypothetical situation where the TM has got to either get all this stuff done in advance or is doing both or doesn't have the production manager dialed in yet. Now, on major pop tours, yes, tour management and pop and rock tours where you have several different parties and so on and so forth, you will generally have a crack production manager. And that production manager is going to work to get all of the production related expenses dialed in for tour management. And hopefully, if the tour is working correctly, then tour management and production management are both submitting budgets for their respective parties. And a lot of times your tour, on that level, your tour manager and your production manager need to be working in concert. Sometimes you as a tour manager may have some relationships or ideas to bring in some, let me call so-and-so over at so-and-so because I think I can get this one down for you. And you're working that way in budget land. As the tour manager, you're looking it over, you're checking for hot spots, you're asking questions. And then there are times, and I work on plenty of tours also, again, because we're doing TM 101, we're educating people on the process. If you're a tour manager, you better know how to do this stuff. Even if you've got an amazing production manager. What if Andrew Weiss is my production manager? And he knows every damn thing, and I don't have to ask him anything. I don't have to double anything. I just have to make sure that my department, the things that I'm responsible for are in line and budgeted, and we're all submitting towards the business manager together. So yes, indeed. Let's see. Does anybody have anything that we need to, that was on our agenda that we need to address specifically before we go straight into Q&A?
I was gonna, well,
Mary Jo, you got something?
Well, I was just looking at a question that somebody asked, and it's related to contingencies. And
right.
Sid Larson had said, what are some unexpected costs or contingencies that have come up on tours
Henry,
you've been on?
Do we want to open up audio and video and see the people during Q&A?
Yeah, I can try to do that. Pick
That'd
some
be cool.
question and I'll bring them on.
Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, MJ. We're trying to see if we can see the people.
Oh.
Do you want me to answer?
With
Mary
the
Jo?
unexpected costs and contingencies have come up on tours you've been on. How did you handle it? I mean, I think we all have stories. You know,
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
I literally have had people who wanted to change the level of hotel in the middle of a tour. So now, so we had, you know, not only that was not just a hypothetical example. It was like, you know, and to be honest, like the budget could bear it. We went into a little bit of the contingency, so we worked on finding a balance of like, okay, where are we going to do this? We might not be able to do it in New York. You know, we're going a normal hotel is, you know, like mid-level is like 300, 350. So that was the difference of going up to like a $700 a night hotel. And that wasn't going to happen. But, you know, other cities we were able to swing, you know. So it was about finding a balance and then figuring out for us when it could start. Again, that was working with a travel agent, you know, who could get out of some contracts and pick and choose the cities. So we found a balance. So
I've added our friend Levi Wilcox here. He was the tour manager for one of the support acts on my last tour. Great up and coming TM. Levi, are you there?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, Levi, I was just looking at your question about, do you guys have an ideal bottom line profit margin artist net income? I will say that Andrew touched on this yesterday. Again, it depends on what your artist's objective is. Andrew, do you want to speak to that for a second about, you know, are you paying the mortgage or are you going to have a unicorn? Or do you have a number? Because I have worked, somehow that 40% number seems to be something that artists, that's a number that seems to feel attainable to artists. And I've heard that number, and Andrew randomly threw that out yesterday during our chat.
I think, you know, over the years, I've heard 30% net profit being an ideal floor for a large number of artists, with 35% being the target. 40 would be absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. I think that those are very common goals with seasoned artists, you know, that artists that have mortgages and children and families to support.
Right. And
I used to work with an act that had a 40. And there, you know, one portion of the act was the more creative side, and the other portion was the business side. And the business portion of our artist at the time, had that number of 40 and was prepared to sacrifice bells and whistles for that 40. And that's important, because you can have an artist that has an objectified number in their head, but isn't willing to cut, you know, some of the bells and whistles, the unicorn, the screens that, you know, cock 45 degrees sideways. You have to kind of figure it out. What's your priority? Do you want to have the coolest looking show on the planet, or do you want to make a few bucks?
Right. And with that question, like I'm assuming it's all subjective to like guarantees.
100%.
You know, at every level, there has to be like a different bottom line. But a lot of what I've been seeing, like, you know, I haven't hit the arena level as a head TM. Again, I was just like on the run with the artist when Henry was out with Tyler. And, you know, what I've been seeing a lot in the past year with my clients, we're doing, you know, 5,000 cap rooms and stuff, is landing somewhere between 10 to 18% on average. You know, and it's frustrating. It definitely is frustrating for me as a team, because I want to make sure he gets the most money possible. And, you know, some of these artists I feel aren't completely in wraps with what their expending is on tour, and it's affecting their pockets, but they don't really listen to us when we're not as seasoned as some of you guys.
Well, Levi, years ago, I was on a tour as tour accountant with an artist who had a set number in mind of what he wanted to come home with. But once we got on the tour, it was, well, as everyone else has said here, you know, I want this, I want this, I want this. And finally, third weekend of the tour, I went and had a sit down with the artist and said, hey, look, we need to kind of scale back, because your numbers are starting to do like this because of all this extra spending. And he basically dismissed me. And at the end of the tour, you know, I had turned in the final tour accounting, and his management and business manager immediately called me and said, well, what happened? Where did all this go? And I said, here's a paper trail of everything that was sent to you. Here's all the settlements. Here's all the tour accounting stuff. To within 6 cents, your artist wanted this. And I broke out, like Mary Jo had suggested, I broke out. Here's all these extra little things he wanted. Here's like, he wants a moving walkway now. He wants all this extra pyro. Now he wants to come in from the ceiling instead of, you know, just popping up from the stage and toasters, you know, this. Here's all the extra stuff that the artist wanted. So you sometimes just kind of have to, sometimes you can't help people who don't want to be helped. And that's all you can do.
Yeah, that's
With this budgeting, this is another reason I think that everything we've been talking about and percentages to hit at the end, it's a really good example of why you only want to put your guarantees into your budget. You want to cut your coat to fit that cloth. You know, you don't want to say, oh, I think I'm going to, you know, make this, I'm going to sell some shows out and make overages, or I'm going to sell this much in merch. Like that should be icing on the cake. So really important that you don't put anything other than your guarantees in there. Now, if you rarely see tour support, or I should say solid income, like you really rarely see tour support these days, but you know, say for whatever reason, the management's worked out a small, you know, tour support, like chip in from the label.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to give you 10 grand startup costs. So that can go in, but only hard income should go in.
Right.
No variables.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Well, you know, what we're getting in terms of tour support these days is generally limited to any promo that might be being done, and it sort of comes in the, you know, send us a budget for what this move is going to look like to do this bit of promo, whether it's one-offs or it's a TV promo run through LA and New York, or it's a European TV talk show, you know, music run. It just depends on what the question is.
I added Max here. Max, are you with us? You had a question that I wanted to address. Is he there?
Is he in here? I see him.
He's got his mic muted.
I don't see him. I think he might be gone.
Okay.
Let's see. Nicole Brennian had a question. How do you handle management asking you to get quote numbers down by utilizing your vendor relationships, because this leg is more promo, and then forever expecting the same numbers on future tours? You know, you do the best you can. There are sometimes you go to your vendors and you say, listen, I need to defer some of my cost on this promo run to maybe something that's on the back end. But as far as, you know, the costs are what the costs are what the costs are. And I don't know if anyone else wants to tackle, you know, sort of getting pressure from management to come in under budget and then sticking with that. You kind of, as a professional, have to be able to go, look, these are what the numbers are. We can try to get them down, but costs are costs. You know, you do the best you can. Anybody have something to add to Nicole's question?
I feel like I've had that conversation too many times. Like, you know, we, again, going with what Henry was saying, it is all about the relationships that we have with these vendors. Like, there is going to be times where they are able to kind of work things around and work in our favor and make some things happen. And that goes with starting at the bottom and working your way up. There may be particular tours where they are able to kind of give us some more reoccurring numbers from past tours. But I think as we get bigger, we're all in this together. You know, they're expecting to grow with us, and we're expecting to grow with them. And I think that management, again, going to transparency, I think if you give the options, and the things that you do get with these relationships is that insurance and security of like the family ties that you have growing with these vendors, they are able to have some wiggle room for you. But the numbers are what they are, and you know, you can do your due diligence to give options and give them everything there on the table. But again, what Adrian was saying, like, you know, there is certain circumstances where you will be able to get that number down, but these numbers are what they are. So
I think
to resonate on that real quick, on the relationship side, it goes both ways. Like, having the relationships that I've built over the years brings a lot of value to me as a tour manager, to any of us, because as you go into a new act, just having the relationship with like a lighting vendor, you know, that you could tell the management that without a question, just having me on board saves you an extra 10% on your lighting bill, because it's me, because I've dealt with that company for so many years and I know that they're going to take care of me, and I can ask them to sharpen their pencils down to a lower quote. You know, like, so as a tour manager, as you come up, realizing that your relationships with vendors brings a lot of value to you as a tour manager and what you bring to the table, which could then bring your pay rate up because you bring more value to the tour.
And something that I would like to say about when Nicole asks about, well, management, if somebody does a deal, a vendor does a deal for you that you have a relationship with for a certain leg, how do you deal with them forever expecting the same numbers on future tours? I try to be very communicative with management, and just the way that I would phrase it, hey, for this, they're going to do us a special deal just for this one.
Yeah.
You know, I try to slip that in, you know.
Yeah.
For this one, they can do it because it's short or whatever. I try to set up that conversation in a way that they know it's just for this, you know, that it's not going to necessarily always be those rates, and at least open that door to that conversation.
The vendors, like I said, they want to see you grow. They want to ride that wave with you, where you may only take out a couple floor light package right now, but you know, next summer you're one truck of lights. You know, they see the potential in acts. They're smart. But I've got Molly on. You raised your hand. You had a question. Are you there?
Oh wait, hold on. I'm muted.
No, we can
hear you. We just don't see you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why. Oh, here we go. Start my video. Here we go. Oh, hi.
Hey.
Thank you so much, you guys, for doing this. Really appreciate it. I have been working in the field for about 15 years, and mostly working with smaller bands. So part of the reason why I wanted to come and do this panel is because I've never really done a tour budget before. And it's because, you know, when I get hired, like the flights are already booked, the bus has already been booked. I ask about hotel budgets and do that. But I guess my question is, should I have been doing that? You know, like, it's interesting how, for me, it was like, I felt like the manager kind of took care of that aspect of budgeting the tour. And it hasn't come back to bite me in the butt, really, because it's almost like I'm just this hired gun versus I'm running it from the beginning. Do you know what I mean?
It is frequently like that. And the one thing that I personally will just, before I throw it over to the rest of the panel, one thing I'm going to say about that is that you can have an idealized vision of what tour management should be, but you have got to remain open-minded because it's organic. We're working in the music business, and what tour management, for example, I work on a tour where in our hierarchy and structure, tour management is only dealing with the A party and not dealing with the operation and execution of anything else. Okay, so I have also been in situations where I've been handed a completed budget. Sometimes you're brought in at the last minute. So there isn't any, this is about as fluid as it gets of any business that you're ever going to be in your life. This one is probably the least sort of, you know, you can think you've got a foundation, but your foundation is built in fantasy land. It's all smoke and mirrors. So you kind of have to do the best you can to level out the ground and then figure out where it is. I was called for a tour management job that was going to be specifically moving the band, the act, from box A to box B. Moving up, just move them and settle. Don't look at them, don't talk to them, put them in, get them, put them in the car, get them to the gig, get them from the gig to the dressing room, from the dressing room to stage. That's it. So you've really got to approach, do what you think you need to be doing. If you feel like maybe there's something that you might be missing, or should I be doing, check back. Maybe they don't, maybe they would like you to take it off their plate and they just haven't given it to you yet.
Right.
Guys,
Hey,
anybody
Molly, I also think that every situation is different.
Right.
And I think it would behoove you to learn how to do
Exactly.
budgets and stuff. And because one of the things that I had 3 great mentors when I was first starting out, and the best wisdom that they shared with me was learn everything you can. Learn tour management, production management, learn accounting. If you could be a promoter rep, try to be a promoter rep, because now you can learn things from both sides. So I think it would behoove you, and I think it would make you a stronger tour manager also.
Yeah.
By learning everything.
Yeah, and I did just get a bigger job where I am going to be expected to do this. So that's part of why I'm here. And, you know, that's in my career, that's where I've gotten all my spreadsheets is from other tour managers. I mean, this isn't the kind of thing you can necessarily make up. You know, you have to get those resources from the other people. And I so appreciate the tour managers back when I was, you know, did my first bus tour. And I just said, can someone just give me a bunch of information about what I'm supposed to be doing here? And I got sent spreadsheets and I got sent different things, and it was so helpful. And so I really appreciate how much we support each other and mentor each other. And because that's the only way you get that information. I mean, it's not something you can really access otherwise, you know? So
and I can't speak for everyone on this panel, but if you wanted to reach out to any of us, you know, outside of this realm, you know, I'm sure, I mean, I personally would be more than willing to answer any questions or help you out with anything.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Looking forward to going back to work sometime.
We have a question from Jesse. Can you go over how things are paid for on tour that are on the budget? Credit cards, cash, check, etc. How are PDs given out? Who does the auditing on the credit card bills? Who has access to these? Do you have PEX cards? I'm wondering if that was Amex, Jesse?
No, it's a cash card. It's a debit card. Yeah, it's a loadable.
The per diem, was that the per diem cards?
There's a couple different ones that people are using, but PEX is, a lot of runners have them. I think AEG's implemented a lot, so it's a debit card, but sometimes I think people are using them for PDs and stuff, yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
So, what was that?
Can you repeat the question?
It's in the Q&A, and it's a basic, just how are things paid for, credit cards, checks, and so on.
It's a good question. It's about 5 questions, actually.
Yeah, it's about 5 questions. So here's the deal. How are things paid for? It depends by tour. The bigger vendors like your busing and trucking and your lighting and your production vendors are generally going to go to the business manager, and the business manager is going to figure out what the terms are and work with the vendor to cut that check or do that wire, and you're going to hear about it if it doesn't go well. How are PDs given out? Different tours are varying these days. Normally, the way it was always done, you get your PDs at the beginning of the week in cash, and you get an envelope and you collect your envelopes, and then you have free money. These days, more folks are trying to pull less cash on tours for tracking and whatnot. So on many of the tours that I'm on these days, your PDs are in your check. We are always watching our payroll companies because that should be non-taxable.
Actually, it's taxable now as of 2019.
Taxable now.
And you can't write it off.
We go back and forth with this, and that's going to be the accounting panel. We're going to all duke that one out. That's the conversation. And then you see them registering it as non-taxable, but they're taxing it. So be careful with that really quick. Who does the auditing on the CC bills? If you have one in your name, you should do your own, but the business manager is also going to come up behind you, and they're going to be looking for reconciliations of your credit card statements.
Yeah.
I am going to just throw this out there very quickly. If the tour can do it, and many small tours can even do this, it's like with their business manager, do not use your own credit card if you can help it.
Never.
Ask them for a tour card. It is so easy for a business manager to get you a tour Amex. It is very easy. And even if the artist is not holding, they're not traveling with it, probably the business manager has set up a master account that they can get other cards on. Sometimes I've seen a MasterCard, but usually it's Amex.
We would typically do like a monthly reconciliation, and I would just, I would send in weekly reconciliations of just anything on a card spend. I mean, I even took it as far as, I'd buy a receipt book at the beginning of the tour, and all receipts I'd code out, I'd scan, I'd send in the book, and then I'd send them weekly reports. And then at the end of the tour, I just mailed them the book with all the receipts.
But on a smaller tour, you may be doing, if you're on a van tour, you may be doing all cash, and that's, just keep a hold of your cash. But that's not a terrible thing. It's a good way to learn.
These are all good questions that'll we're going to cover in depth once we get to accounting, tour accounting and settlement. But I've got my homie Dan Moyes here. Dan had a good question that I think is a good way to end it, because let's talk about reconciliation a little bit. Dan, what's your question?
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. So at the end of the tour, as we know, a lot of bills don't filter in until maybe 30 days after. Shipping, gear shipments, lighting returns, audio, etc., etc. At what point do you reconcile the tour with business management and management? Do you do a quick reconciliation right after the tour and then another one a month later?
I think that we do, I try to do, you try to do a reconciliation of everything that you have, cash, any expenses, any receipts, get that stuff in and done and off your plate as fast as humanly possible. And then it's a matter usually of checking in with the business manager to make sure if they've seen all the invoices that have come in, if you have any delinquent vendor. It's a lighting company I love that we all know that just always seems to get the invoices late, to make sure that everything is in. And then when the business manager's had a look at all of it, and he or she feels like they're ready to go over it. Anyway, I think it behooves us to get done as fast as we humanly possibly can to get it into the books. And then when the business manager's ready, come back and review.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Andrew. Always get anything cash related I have on hand, anything that's in my ability to reconcile right off the bat, anything like credit card related, cash on hand, I'll go ahead and reconcile that immediately. I'll follow up with all of our vendors on the tour kind of going into the week, because I know we're all trying to get gear back. People are kind of finalizing things in between. I'll follow up like a week and a half later and check in with business managers. But anything that's bulk, like big production, I'll usually give a window, a breathing room. But anything on hand that's on you, just reconcile as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. You're right, Dan. A lot of the times, man, like we'll see that invoice come in like a month later, and it's like, seriously, like, now, like and
then the budget changes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, we had a good talk about this yesterday of like, when the tour is done, how many of us actually take the budgets and then fill out an actual column of where we ended up?
Yeah,
and
that's basically my question.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, we touched on this yesterday. Like you said, with your artists, you didn't really have to with the artists you've been working with for a long time, right? Or is it just a good practice that you do, or is somebody said that business management required it? It's a different answer per act, isn't it?
Yeah, we did talk about this a great deal yesterday. I like to plug in my actuals as I receive them. There may be some variable changes post tour, but where we can, I love to plug it in and keep a running budget with versions and dates, so I can, if I want to go back and see how it changed, what the genesis or evolution was, I'm able to do that.
Yeah. I like to especially keep track of actuals of like hotels, right. And it's when I'm on, like maybe we cut a room, maybe somebody like wanted to go home or something like that one day. I like to see while I'm on tour certain things that are kind of in real time. It's nice to see where you're at.
Yeah, and when we get into our travel and with that travel panel, we're going to talk about things like when the hotels decide 45 days after you've left that they're suddenly going to charge your card, or when you are doing your hotel reconciliations and you discover that you don't have a final folio from a hotel and you call them and they say, oh, we never ran your card. What do you mean 6 weeks later? So
Well, you know,
we'll hit that one in travel.
yeah. Reconciliation, this is like actually something that I thought of when we were talking about relationships with vendors. This is another good reason to build those relationships with vendors, because, you know, you can say, hey, you know, when you send the invoice over to business management, can you copy me? You know them a little better. You say, hey, you know, we need to get that invoice pretty quick. You know, so it's a really good reason to have a good relationship with your vendors, and you can kind of talk to them about, hey, we really want to settle this quick.
Yeah, it's like, we want to pay you. We want to give you money. What's the problem?
Pay you. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a great reason. Or sometimes, you know, vendors will, you know, they're sending out some techs on tour and they want to book all their own travel or whatever, and they want to send that on their bill. You know, you can, if you have a relationship with them, you can ask them to review that. You know what's going on. You know, it's a really good reason to build relationships with your vendors.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it'll help you close things out, help you relate to do that reconciliation.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for the question, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I find that, you know, yeah, I'll reconcile, I'll give them the actuals. And in the end, like, I'm just reporting that information. They're going to take those numbers and put it in, I'm sorry, and they, meaning business management, are going to take that and put it into their spreadsheet that they may have, that figures out the overall tour of where they lay, because you're one section of that budget, a big part of it, but then there could be outside sources like the record label, sponsorships, merch. There's other outside sources of revenue and expenses that are applied to the tour that you may not be in control of or have the hard figures for. So in some ways, a good business management is going to take that, take your numbers and tie it in with theirs and give the artist and the manager where the final answer of where they ended up in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, great.
So, we hope everyone will join us for the next panel, which is Thursday, which is going to be a logistics panel. John Aiken was in the room a moment ago. He was just here. We'll see. John, are you still here?
He is.
Yep, he is. John Aiken, is John joining us for logistics?
Well, we're going to find out.
Hey, John.
Hey.
How are you doing?
It's all good. Doing fine. Thank you.
For those of you who are new to the business, this is Mr. John Aiken. He is one of our premier bus vendors in North America. We adore him, and he has recently joined forces with a European company called Beat the Street, which we all absolutely love. So we wanted to say hi to John and introduce John to some of our new folks. John's one of the most knowledgeable busing providers in the history of tour busing.
And nicest people in the industry also.
I'm blushing.
Nicest guy.
Can you see that? I'm blushing. Thank you.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. We're looking forward to that talk on Thursday.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for including me. It's an honor.
All right, awesome. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see all you Thursday.
Thanks,
Do we
guys.
want
Have a
to
good day.
do we do anything on a closeout? Guys, thank you for following us today. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We love talking about anything touring related. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. I think we added some templates from today. So any templates that you saw us show you today will be available on the website. And if you have any questions, obviously don't hesitate to reach out to us for. But next week, or not next week, this Thursday will be logistics. So you'll see an event page for that, which I'll post, and we'll keep you guys updated on our next webinars. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody. Have a good day.